HOA President Linda believed she was untouchable when she ordered my 100-year-old heritage tree to be cut down just to clear the sunlight for her brand new pool. But she made two massive mistakes. Damaging a protected heritage tree is a serious offense, and her $50,000 luxury swimming pool, it sits exactly 2 feet inside my property line. So while she was away on vacation, I decided to build a divider she would never forget. Watch what happens when the president finally lays eyes on her pool in the quiet neighborhood of Willow Creek. There was one unspoken rule: never cross Linda, the HOA president. Linda treated the entire suburb like it was her private empire, and for reasons only she understood, she had always held a particular grudge against me, Alex. I lived in a modest home, but my pride and joy was a massive 100-year-old white oak tree standing tall in my backyard. This wasn't just a tree. It was a registered heritage oak, protected by city ordinance and older than the subdivision itself. Linda, however, had no respect for history. She had just completed a $50,000 luxury swimming pool directly behind her home, right along our shared property line. The issue was simple. My towering oak cast shade over her tanning deck and dropped leaves into her sparkling blue water. For months, she bombarded me with aggressive HOA letters claiming the tree was a nuisance and damaging the community's image. Alex, be reasonable, she sneered one afternoon over the fence, hiding behind oversized designer sunglasses. That rotten old tree is blocking my sun. Cut it down or I'll have the HOA fine you into bankruptcy. I looked her square in the eye and reminded her that the oak was legally protected. I warned her that if she so much as touched a single branch, there would be consequences. She only smirked and strutted away, her heels clicking across her polished pool deck. 3 days later, I came home from work to a sight that made my stomach drop. A professional tree crew was loading up their equipment, and my majestic oak looked mutilated. Linda had pushed through an emergency HOA order to bypass my consent and had every major limb hanging toward her yard chopped off. She stood above me on her balcony, wine glass in hand, wearing a triumphant smile. It looks so much cleaner now, doesn't it? She called down. She thought she had won. She thought her title made her above the law. But as I stared at my damaged heritage tree, I wasn't thinking about the HOA. I was thinking about the property survey locked in my desk. A survey proving Linda had built her $50,000 pool in a very dangerous spot. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a shouting match. I went inside, shut the door, and pulled out a faded blue folder from my office drawer. Inside was a certified land survey from the 1920s, updated just 2 years ago when I bought the property. I understood this land better than Linda ever had. She was so blinded by power that she never checked where her backyard truly ended. The next morning, I hired a licensed surveyor to mark the boundaries with bright neon stakes. As he worked, my pulse pounded in my ears. He confirmed exactly what I suspected. Because our homes were built along a subtle curve, the property line didn't match the current fence. In fact, the fence leaned 6 inches into my yard, but the legal boundary extended much farther back. According to city records, Linda's massive $50,000 luxury pool stretched precisely 24 inches, a full 2 feet, onto my land. She hadn't only butchered my tree, she had built her prize pool on my property. But I wasn't finished. I went to the city heritage office. When I showed the administrator photos of my damaged white oak, she went pale. Alex, she whispered, cutting these limbs without a permit isn't just an HOA issue. It's a high-level civil offense. The penalty for damaging a heritage tree of that size was $12,000 per major limb. Linda had removed four. That was a $48,000 legal disaster waiting for her. I spent the rest of the week quietly, preparing my response. I secured a court-stamped injunction and obtained a permit for emergency boundary fortification. On Thursday afternoon, I watched Linda load a suitcase into her car. She was leaving for a 5-day HOA leadership conference in the city. Have a wonderful trip, Linda, I called with a pleasant wave. She paused, puzzled by my sudden friendliness, then laughed smugly. I'm glad you've accepted your place. Alex, the neighborhood looks better without those messy branches. She drove off believing she had crushed me. She had no idea that within 2 hours, a flatbed truck carrying 3-ton concrete slabs would pull into my driveway. By the time she returned, her luxury pool wouldn't just look different, it would be divided. The moment her car vanished down the road, Willow Creek transformed into an active construction site. I didn't hire a landscaper. I hired an industrial contractor known for strict boundary enforcement. I handed him the survey, the permits, and the court order. The line runs exactly here, I said, pointing to the neon stakes slicing straight through her concrete deck and into the glimmering pool water. The crew wasted no time. The shriek of a heavy-duty concrete saw echoed through the quiet neighborhood, drawing neighbors onto their porches. They watched in stunned silence as the blade cut through expensive imported marble tiles and the reinforced shell of the pool. We weren't creating chaos. We were reclaiming land. By midday, a crane rolled in carrying 3 massive precast concrete slabs, each reinforced with thick steel rebar. These weren't decorative stones. They were highway-grade barriers designed to stop trucks. With careful precision, the operator lowered the first slab directly into the water. Splash! The displaced water surged across Linda's patio, drenching her costly outdoor furniture. I didn't flinch. As the slabs were secured into the ground and sealed with industrial waterproof epoxy, a literal wall began rising from the center of her pool. The barrier stood 4 feet high and extended exactly 2 feet into the pool's interior, perfectly aligned with my legal property line. Because her filtration intake and main drain were located within those 2 feet of my land, her entire pool system instantly became useless. On my side of the wall, I now owned a 2-foot-wide strip of motionless, stagnant pool water. On Linda's side, the water level slowly began to sink and the filtration pumps let out a horrifying metallic scream as they sucked in nothing but air. I made sure the workers left a portion facing her house as raw, unfinished gray concrete. No decorative tiles, no paint, just a harsh, industrial reminder of her own arrogance. On my side, I positioned a simple wooden bench and a small potted plant beside my wounded heritage tree. Several HOA members stood nearby taking pictures, and a few even clapped in open approval. They had endured Linda's iron grip for years, and watching her crown jewel pool sliced in half by a towering slab of concrete was the most satisfying moment they had experienced in a long time. I sat quietly on my new bench, studying the wall and the damaged oak. Everything was in place. Now, all that remained was for the president to return to her newly divided kingdom. Sunday evening arrived wrapped in a heavy, ominous silence. I was seated in my backyard near the jagged remains of my white oak's cut branches, watching the sun disappear below the horizon. Then I heard it, the soft, familiar purr of Linda's luxury SUV as it rolled into her driveway. I took a slow sip of coffee and waited. The calm shattered with a scream so sharp it could have triggered car alarms. Linda stepped onto her patio, expecting to see her sparkling $50,000 pool. Instead, she was confronted by a towering slab of brutal gray concrete that split her once perfect pool into a useless, jagged disaster. Her face flushed a deep shade of crimson. "Alex, what have you done?" "My pool. You've ruined my pool," she screamed, pounding her fist against a rough surface that now blocked her view. I stood and walked toward the wall at an unhurried pace. "I haven't ruined anything, Linda. I simply returned things to their rightful place," I said evenly. I extended a thick yellow envelope over the divider. "Inside you'll find a certified survey. Your pool was 2 feet over my boundary line. Under the law, I'm fully entitled to protect my property." She tore the envelope open, her fingers trembling. "I'm the HOA president. I'll have you evicted. I'll sue you for everything you own." Actually, I cut in calmly. "There's more. The second document is a civil summons for the destruction of a protected heritage tree the city inspector visited yesterday. Each of the 4 major limbs you remove carries a $12,000 fine. That's $48,000 owed directly to the city, Linda. And since HOA funds were used to pay that tree crew, the board is already initiating impeachment proceedings for financial misconduct." Her jaw fell open. The once untouchable president suddenly realized she was trapped inside the consequences of her own actions without the filtration system, which now sat behind my wall. Her half a pool quickly turned into a stagnant, foul-smelling swamp buzzing with mosquitoes. Within days, the HOA board, exhausted from her years of tyranny, voted her out unanimously the following Tuesday to cover the city fines and the mounting legal expenses. Linda was forced to list her home for sale, but buyers weren't eager to purchase a property featuring a permanently divided pool. She ended up selling it at a fraction of its former value to a developer and quietly moved away in disgrace. On moving day, I stood beside my oak tree, which had already begun sprouting fresh green buds from the scars she left behind. Linda glanced at me one final time, defeated and silent. I didn't say a word. I simply lifted my mug and watched as she drove out of Willow Creek for good. She tried to rule the neighborhood. Justice wasn't just delivered. It was poured in concrete. This is my YouTube channel, DH Story. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Thanks.